Okay, thanks, Wendy, very much for volunteering to come on your Saturday and share your knowledge. Now you know why some of us are excited to work here. Um, so I'm Todd Cruz. If you don't know who I am, I'm going to be going through some mentoring, effective mentoring things on stuff and stories of my mentoring here at Delta, as well as mentoring in First. And just quick snapshot of who I am. I'm going in my ninth season with First. I'm a lead mentor of the 7068 and 8516 rookie teams, and I do a lot of different mentoring with electrical and software around the area. As a control system advisor as well at the regional events. Some of you might see me with an orange hat on, and I was a robot specialist one time as well. Delta here, my primary role is electrical engineer, laser specialist. I do a lot of the core development with the HMIs that we see on our machines, the human machine interfaces that runs our information from the touchscreens down to the machine to do certain functions in that. And I am also a mentor here, which Delta has been trying to incorporate for a while now, really pushing this mentor thing as new students come in, like Josh and Eric, when they came in, they were assigned a mentor here at Delta. But my philosophy is everybody's a mentor here. Doesn't matter how long you've been here or not. Just at one point or another, you're always a mentor and talking with your coworkers. So quick thing, mentoring coaching roles, effective mentoring, facilitating techniques, advice for mentors, transitioning from a student to a mentor, which we have a few alumni with us, and mentoring tips overall. So we kind of touched on this, but I always like to understand kind of who's in the audience. And so if you're a coach that's just a teacher employed by the school, you want to raise your hand. So this gives a perspective that we have a majority of, yeah. And the same question for if you're a mentor from industry. So
What if you're neither?
What if you're neither?
if you're neither, like Lori, you're a full-time volunteer, but first, what do you, John?
I coach a team, but I'm not from industry and I'm not a teacher.
Likewise.
All right. And same with George. So it gives us perspective that we kind of half and half here in the room when we talk about these things. So here's just a snapshot, and all this is part of the new mentoring guide that First put out. There's a lot of great things in there, and I encourage you to go through in detail on there. But mentoring is an important part of First program and largely contributes to the program success. So without any of us mentors or coaches in here, First wouldn't exist. The students wouldn't have anyone to talk to or anyone to coach them or even know how to build a robot or do marketing things and get sponsorships. All this fun stuff they like to do when Jeremy takes them out laser tag, right? If we're not around, nothing happens, right? Every adult first team is a mentor simply because they lead through guidance, example, and important. Remember, students need guidance and structure. And it's very key that they need structure and guidance. And so when we talk about mentorship, when I come to a school, a lot of times when I get called to area schools and that, I'm there for one reason. I'm there to solve a technical issue, which I love. That's what I do here at Delta. I do engineering here, and I love going solving problems and providing the engineering solutions that Wendy mentioned, right? So when I think of problems, my mind initially goes right to how am I going to solve it? How am I going to fix that issue? And some of us in the room are like that. Some of us like to take a little opportunity and do a bunch of diagnostics and think about it. Well, if I do this, if I do that, and do all this analyzing, right? Some of us are wired a completely different way, like me, to just go and want to solve problems. So the guidance and stuff is based on the role you play with the team. Maybe you're just doing administration. Maybe your job is just to deal with the school administrator, line up funds. How am I going to do this? How am I going to allow the students to do this? Or how do I got to line up buses? Or how do I even transport? Or how am I going to feed the kids? We all have different roles on there. So kind of defining what we are doing and what we are best to do, because sometimes we need to find the best fit for ourselves as well as a mentor coach. So first discussion point. And I always find this interesting because what is the difference between a coach and a mentor? Because first we'll put these two together. And sometimes they mention mentor, and then sometimes they do coaches. Is there a difference? I'd love to hear your opinion because I always, wonder about this sometimes. Is there a coach or are you just a mentor? Now, first we'll define, we're all mentors at one point. We're all gonna structure time or we're gonna guide a student in that. We're coaching as well as mentoring. So is a mentor just the technical advisor to the team? Some would argue that, right? I could easily say, hey, Josh, I'm just the technical advisor. I'm only gonna help build a robot, do the programming, electrical, steer some mechanical stuff, and that's it. And I also asked him about, registering for stuff, signing up to go things, is that coaching or mentoring? Anyone got an opinion on this?
That depends what your school district administration thinks.
Yeah.
Usually coach is a person that administration will deal with. If you're a mentor, usually they're arguing with the custodians on how late they can be there.
I think your role as a coach is defined whether or not you have mentorship. And if you are a mentor and don't have a coach, then you end up pulling in some of those responsibilities. Some teams are blessed with multiple coaches, multiple mentors. Other teams have one individual who is doing all things, which then becomes a priority ladder of what can I do with the time that I have today?
I think coach is the one who has the ultimate responsibility for trying to get everything else together.
Would that be the paid
Hmm?
person from the district then?
If there is paid.
If there's paid?
There is no.
Most of these are all volunteers, right?
Yeah.
Health responsibility. Anyone else? I don't have an answer for this, so I'm just throwing this out. Lori?
Well, thank you for pointing out the new mentoring guide. If you start reading it, Todd, and you realize this sounds like Lori talking, that could be a reason. So from first perspective, they look at the younger, smaller robot programs as having individuals, adults who are in the role of coach, because you're actually coaching the students on how to do things. As students progress through school, as they're older, really that grade 9 through 12 grouping, your role is changing. You're not the one with the hand in the robot. You're guiding someone to have a hand in the robot. Your role is not to be that hands-on person behind the glass, but you have mentored them and guided them so they feel confident to be behind the glass to drive the robot or to coach the team as a drive coach. So it's a recognition, just like first is a progression of programs, that there's a continuum of coaching that then becomes more mentoring, and that we as adults are not just in that role of teaching them how to write a business plan, but also then guiding them to someone who's interested in hearing about that business plan. You become that bridge. So that's from the first perspective, and then how it actually plays out in real life, it's kind of messy. You really are both at the same time to a great extent. So if that's helpful, Todd.
Yeah.
Do you find to your point, Lori, do you find as a coach that it's more about instructive and as a mentor, it's more about good questions?
Because we're all teachers, motivators, right? Facilitators, so on point. The greater picture of this is I've had coaches that I've ran across from, and no one in this room that I know, is they're there just taking up time, right? They're sitting there grading papers, not engaged with students. So I would classify that person as a coach. And then when the mentor comes in, the room changes. And all of a sudden, hey, people want to engage in what we're doing this. And, and I ran in that situation, and it's disheartening because it goes to our earlier questions. Why are you there? Are you excited to be there and engage your students, right? I love that. I love them teachable moments when we can say, hey, have you thought about this? Design consideration for this, get them thinking, because I don't want to give them the answer. And my answer is no, it's right anyway. And every opinion matters when you're talking to students. So that's the reason I brought it up. Is just
I would
interesting.
a little bit though, because we've got a number of mentors, coaches on our team,
And I say, you don't have to know everything and you can just be in the room because our room cannot be open if we don't have an adult there.
Two people.
I have adults that just are there and the kids are teaching each other. They're mentoring each other.
Yep.
They don't have to engage. And it's not their personality engaged and they're overwhelmed if they have to do that. But I am so thankful that they're there being that adult in the room. And I would still consider them, I guess, a coach or a mentor, maybe not in the same respect, but it allows our kids to be able to meet.
I would agree with that. The only caveat also was when a parent came in the room, and keep in mind, this was the paid coach for the team. They turned around and said, talk to Todd. They wouldn't even talk to the student and tell him, hey, what's going on. They were the representative from the school, paid by the school. And that drove me a little nuts. And I agree with you because if you have a number of mentors, you're always going to have mentors and coaches there that are not always actively engaged with the students, but they're there. And that means a lot. It means a lot to the students. And sometimes they're just parents because their student is part of the robotics program, which is great. See what your students are doing in the classroom.
So for me, I think it's all semantics. A lot of it's semantics, coach versus mentor, but I think every adult and kind of what you're getting, every adult that interacts with these kids is an example.
Yep.
Right. And if you're getting back to culture, the example you want to set is how do you want to engage and be present with the students. It doesn't mean you have to bring technical knowledge. It doesn't mean you have to bring specific skills, but you bring yourself as a human as an example of what you want to portray.
Because we need them people. We need the moms that says, these boys are hungry after school. Here's some snacks. Them two guys will testify. We never kept snacks longer than a day there because they would all disappear. They're helping out and being there and doing a function that needs to be done on the team. I didn't want to go long into that. It was just something that I always thought about, and first doesn't really distinguish us either, right? We all at some point do coaching and mentoring. It all depends on what type of role you're doing. Most important, though, the thing that I like to point out here is important to members and students are equal and the relationship is a partnership. So partnership like these two young gentlemen over here and that, right? I had the opportunity to mentor me in the first robotics there. And it didn't really occur to me because one of the things I'm continuously learning as a mentor and just a general employee here at Delta is someone came and told me, he says, well, I think it's cool. You get to continue mentoring these guys. And I was blown away. I didn't even think of it, didn't even really realize that. It's like, my mentorship is not over with these guys. I want them to be successful here at Delta. I want to answer questions that they may have and continue showing them things like, hey, remember the things we showed you at first, or like Josh was wiring things. And I'm not going to pick on you all the time, Josh, but Josh, I've been working with Josh since he was 8th grade, and he built some great electrical boards for us at TNT and mechanical measurement teams. And we were going to a panel the other day, and I said, I told everyone here when I hired you, we're going to teach you how to faro anything on these wires. And I had them wire some stuff. It's sorry, the Prince of Nancy, we're redesigning it on the fly. And we're going through the panel and checking, like, yeah, the wire numbers are the right way, up and down. And I said, I'm doing a pull test because I was told to do a pull test after you get done wiring. And we're going through some other part of the panel, and we pull a wire off right out of the contact. Right, Josh? It was amazing. I said, see, even in robotics, people don't get right, even here in history, right? It's one of the things, techniques and stuff, it's just continually saying, hey, this happens all the time. And it's a nuisance for us electrical engineers when we're running the machine trying to get them to work, right? But it's that continuous partnership. I just can't, stress that enough. It's a partnership between you and the students and getting to know your students a little bit. And granted, there's not all the times you don't engage all the students, but I always think it's important. And then here's a whole list of things that's again, these are all in the mentor guide. Feel free to look at it. There's some exercise in there as well, but this actually sharing your knowledge and experience, I always try and relate to the students in one way or another. During the build season, most of them know that I raise cattle and that because of the, hey, it's calving season for me at home. Hey, let's look at the cams, see if the cows are getting ready to calve or something, just something, or ask them, hey, how's it going in school, or yeah, test, it's just one of the things, what's that connection from with the student, right? And it's boiling down to, hey, do you want these students to have fun in here? Do you want the student to come back? And do they want to come back? Are they getting anything out of it? Are the people that are around them mentoring and coaching them being kind to them and being respectful and getting actively engaged them? That's where I'm really hard about engaging your students. Because if you don't get the chance to know them or even ask and talk to them, they won't want to come back because they'll see you there and wonder why you're there. Play his videos. This on first as well, and it's a really good story. And afterwards, tell me if you want to be like Bruce. What do you think? Uh, for me, it's just one of the things to be more passionate with my students and that everything we do when we come in and do our mentoring or coaching, we never know the impact that we're going to make on these students. For me, that's huge, right? I had no idea that later on Josh would be a full-time employee here. Or Eric, when I met him, when he was the captain of the hockey team and wanted to be in robotics, but he was captain of the hockey team. And I had no idea, just the little things we say that talk to him, to mentor him, to steer him in a direction. That guy is the structure that we're doing, and just the passion that I have working here at Delta and the passion that I bring to the robotics. It's just undescribable what can happen with these students. And I just want to play the video and just have, is anyone have any thoughts about that? On what we can do as mentors to be effective on there. You know, it's more than just getting that robot to work or making a business plan with them students or go out and drag them out to a sponsored visit or whatever it is. It's the impact of a lifetime that we can't see or may not even ruin lives, but we have impacted these students long term. And that's one of the reasons why I
think there's a video also on First that's more than robots, and that one probably hit me pretty hard a couple of years ago. It's like we're over back here, you're not from industry, but really, what is industry? You know, I think in this room right now, collectively, we're like, this is robotics, mechanical, engineering, industry. But part of the culture of industry, there's a lot more human resources and HR stuff and business plan side there. So I don't know, John.
Yeah.
I mean, what is your background?
I'm a retired architect.
That's industry. So you're from.
Well,
I mean,
it's not technical in any sense.
But the stuff that you're bringing to the kids, you are bringing up, and the great thing is like I can learn a lot from you. So even as mentors, we're mentoring the mentors. You know, not having that one particular. We don't not any one of us encompasses it all. We all lean on each other. So I kind of felt bad when school, yes, no. Industry, yes, no. It's not binary. That industry part isn't, because we need architects in industry and we need HR in industry. And so, I mean, if you're not hired by the school, you're part of an industry. You're part of something in the world. And it goes back to more than robots. Remember that.
more than robots. Exactly.
I think one other thing, I've coached athletics for many years. And I think sometimes, like, I think there's valuable life lessons you learn in athletics for sure, but the connections are looser to like what they're gonna do as they grow into life. And that's one thing, just from my minimal experience in robotics, is the connections to what you could potentially do in life are much more tangible when it comes to robotics, I feel like, which is cool to see. Like, electrical engineering is a literal field you could just go into, you know, and here's kind of how it works. And we get a real good look at that here in robotics. So that's something I've appreciated to be, oh, you know, you're learning determination, which you do learn in robotics, but you're also learning something very tangible, which is cool.
Yep. And I'm passionate about when I do teach these skills in the Pacific for technical, that I'm not showing them something that's not industry standard. I mean, Josh could attest this, when I teach how to do the wiring and that, or the program structures and stuff that I, with these students, I'm teaching like I'm going to teach it with Delta if I had to show someone if they didn't understand how to do that. And mentoring has not always been easy for me. I mean, as Wendy has shared, you know, Delta has grown over there, and there's been a couple instances in my career here at Delta where I had wake up calls and stuff, you know, and one was just simply, hey, these younger engineers, these younger techs, and they look up to you, and I was like, what? No way. Why are they looking up to me? And it makes you really pause and think about that and how I can change my attitude towards my coworkers, or as I teach robotics, you know, sooner or later I've blended that all together, because it's not always been easy for me to do that. You know, I used to always take the stance that, hey, my coworkers, they should know better, right? They should know that. I shouldn't have to school them, and I would get a little bit of them up here and not treat them as well as I should have. And I don't treat my robotic students, when I interface with I totally different. And I've had to change the way I do things, because I realize that as the new students are growing up now, as the longer I do this, they're coming on the industry and that, I don't want to be known like that, right? I want that to be consistent no matter in my job or with robotic students. And so it weighs heavy on me, and the passion that I have is continuous through no matter what. If I'm at a regional event, I take the attitude, these are all my teams, right? They're all my teams. I'm here to serve them, right? They have a problem, I want to help them resolve it, but I want to teach as I go. I don't want to come and say, here's the answer, here's what you did wrong, right? We don't want that. We want to teach them so they get it and they the light bulb comes on. And then we want to grow them so they can be leaders, right? I hope it's for Eric and Josh as they come along at Delta that they're going to grow and they're going to be showing somebody else, a new person that comes, a new employee, a new coworker that's in there, that they will be showing them. So the effective mentoring demonstrates a value source that encounters during the career path and use these successfully to share knowledge and values of team members. And successful mentoring may be help optimizing everyone learning experiences by promoting independent thought, fostering and reciprocating the trust of the students, right? Again, I don't want to give them the answer. I want them to think about it. And I want to use my words carefully sometimes. And if you know that what they want to do does not work, you don't just tell them it will not work. That's a retarded, that's a dumb, you use terms that you shouldn't use. We don't want to talk down to the students. We want to drill them up and say, here's a design consideration. So when we're looking at different things, I want to say design considerations. Will you consider these things in your design? Or this could be done differently. Or have you thought about this, right? We want to think about these different things, say, have you thought about this? And it's just that open communication and encouraging and effective facilitating will do a job like that, right? And it's just constantly asking them questions and engaging the students. That's my big passion. Again, and I always relate to industry. I want them to bring in the industry standard and say, this is a lifetime skill you learn here at first. So as we approach the problems in open mind, and we're going to talk about different swap analysis and stuff later, but we want to capture the ideas. We want them to do homework. Sometimes I like to have the students write something down. I always tell them it's old school, write it down, right? If I have a programmer that can't see the whole thing, I say, write it down in flow chart. And when I say flow chart, I get this blank stare because everyone's used to the electronics and all the tablets and stuff. And I'm like old school. I want you to write it down in a notebook. And I got one student over at St. Francis that does this. And his dad helped me encourage him all the time is write down because when I come to Delta here, I have a notebook and I'm writing things down all the time because I want to make sure I'm capturing stuff that the customer's saying or what my team members want to do. If I have to change something on the machine, I write it down. Some just use Excel sheets now and share it with the rest of the team. So keep everyone on the same page. Whatever your method is, encourage that you can go through and it's a thought process instead of just going to try and do something. I'm not going to run to the shop and just cut something. I'm not going to just send out this marketing thing and no one reviews it, right? There might be grammatical mistakes. There might be a wrong logo. I don't know. You just want to make sure that we're walking beside these students as they're doing things and keep encouraging them. And along with that is fostering and reciprocating trust and respect, the respect goes two ways. And all my time in helping with FIRST, I've never had a student that's been disrespectful. This has been wonderful. Like Wendy said on when she went to the VIP thing with over there at the 10K there at Williams Arena. These students are always been respectful. They want to be there. Most of them want to be there, and they were hungry to learn. And I had go back to the story. I had a coach tell me one time that I don't like your teaching methods because it's over the students' heads. And I about flipped out because I'm thinking you're not giving your students any credit. They're students, and as a mentor coach, you have to be cognizant of this and how far you can push the students to learn stuff or do stuff. And if you're not even willing to open that up a little bit to your students, you're limiting because some students will blow you away if they come up with a strategy or a concept for design, programming method they want to use. It'll blow you away. And this one coach just told me, it's over the kid's heads. And again, I about lost it. I couldn't believe it. He was telling me to limit the knowledge of the student. Because I'll tell students and challenge them for something. And a lot of times, and I'll tell their parents this, and I don't expect them to have the answer when we come back, but I want them to start thinking about it, right? Thinking about how they could resolve that issue. Because that's engineering, right? I go through that every day here at Delta. We start a job, a new project, and we're thinking, I don't know how I'm gonna get this done. I don't know how I'm gonna make that certain feature work. I don't know how I'm gonna code that. I'm not gonna know how I'm gonna design it. And we all sit there and don't know what we're gonna do. But we work together and collaborate and we get it done. And so when the student comes back, and then when they figure that out and they're hungry for some more, then I give them more. I had a student who wanted to learn the coders. So we learned encoders and learned encoders. And I kept telling the student, please check the encoder direction first. And I'm sorry this is all technical, but that's what I am. And he did check the encoder direction. And that thing took off. Boom, we turned it on and it went the wrong way and never got to his point. And then he turned to me and says, now I know what you were saying. Right? It dawned on him that I was supposed to check the encoder, right? So it's that learning process, learning your students and how far you can push them and how long you can to capitulate that whatever knowledge they want to do and push them to the next level. Because again, my goal is to prep them for industry, right? If you want to go into this business, I want well-trained people to come into the doors.
One of my favorite parts is watching them fail. Like, you know, it's gonna fail.
Right.
I tell them about it and it's like, okay, don't tell them it's gonna fail, but like, did you check this? No. I'm like, okay, well, it's safe. No one's gonna get hurt. But, you know, fail fast. Like, oh, well, I guess I should have. So,
Right.
Balancing that, giving the kids the room and the freedom to like fail is important, but you got to be there to like catch them. That's like, that's like culturally, I think our team would be is important to give the kids the freedom to fail, but be there to help build them up and like point out, hey, like it probably didn't work because ABC. It could be something else. This is what I think. Why don't you test it against these criteria and try again? And I think that's something that we historically as a team have struggled with as mentors, is like finding that boundary of how much freedom, because it's intimidating to a lot of these kids in a school system where you got to X, Y, Z at ABC time. These are your expectations. And that's one of the great things about robotics is that freedom, but it's also intimidating. So I think it's a very important to find that balance.
we built these 2 carts, and if you've seen our pit before, you'll see these carts. Cart 1, cart 2, they're labeled left and right on each cart. Each one has a slot number. Each bin is labeled to go in that exact slot. And teaching even it was my mentors, teaching my mentors that when we pull these carts in the shop, 1 is here, 2 is here, the left is here, the right is here. And they're just like, why are you being such a Nazi? Right? Just do it. Just do it. And the kids start catching on there. And then we get to new kids, and new kids roll it in there. And the kids go, no, you got this all mixed up. Flip this cart around. Why? But now when we pull these carts into our pit and they sit there, they don't always go in the same spot because every pit's different. But they know that part I need is on the left one, and they can that cart right there. Boom, it's found. So they got that, you know, and it's just like, why are we doing this? It's like, just do it. Let them figure it out, and then all of a sudden somebody else messes up, and then they start managing themselves. That culture. So.
It's perfect because, and that's kind of why I see the coach mentor thing, because you see that when I come into schools because they're used to their coach, and maybe it's a coach that's a teacher at the school. And when we come in from industry, it's like you're kind of a fresh air brush. Who's this guy? Who's this person coming in? And then you start showing things and they just gravitate to you because they're like, wow. And it's no fault of the teachers and that are there, and that it's just that's their students. It's almost like my own kids, they'll respond to a different adult a different way because they're used to dad telling them certain things, right? I even do it in robotics. We were struggling with some limelight stuff, at the regional, and I was like, hey, Corey, you guys, a minute, why don't you go talk to our program? Because I already told them things, and maybe he just got tunnel vision, maybe it didn't sink into him what I was trying to convey to him. So then Corey went over there, gave him a couple of little things, and it's like, boom, they went and did. They went and wrote their autonomous code and were shooting balls in autonomous. And I'm like, wow.
I could promise I didn't say anything different than Todd said, but it's come to that.
It's
you teach your own
just a
kids,
different voice.
with your own dad.
No.
So it's just doing that facilitating in one way. The mentor is always, answering, the team's mentors and will not feel valued. It's again, do I buy into this? Does the student feel comfortable there with their interaction with you and asking the right questions to stir up the conversation so they can go and figure out what they want to do. And not all students want to do it. Some students are very pointed, they just want the answer, but every opportunity we can share with them why it failed, right? Because failure is always going to happen. It happens here all the time in Delta. I make certain assumptions when I write programs or I engineer something, and it's like that didn't work out the way I wanted to, right? We learn from our mistakes, and so we don't do this. We're building up that next toolbox that says, "Hey, this has worked in the past, but we could do something different." The Monday morning quarterbacking is always a prime example for me, right? Everybody can say Monday morning after regional event, we should have done this, this, and this, right? It's so easy to see. It's so clear to see them, right? And how do you convey that to the students so they're learning that as they go on with their lives? So encourage open questions. What do you think? How do you think about this approach? Is this the right design choices? Is there a better way of designing it? What do you think? Take the time to make sure everyone understands it, include everybody in there. And I've seen students that kind of hang out in the back of the classroom, and this particular student, he was into drawing and stuff. And I was like, we need to get the student engaged here, And so we give them things to do. And sometimes it may not be exactly going to be used at the robot, but hey, encourage the student to draw something or get into CAD to do something or, get them involved with some part of what's going on in the club. So as mentors and coaches, we got to be cognizant of that and see things when you see students redraw a little bit or kind of there, but not really there, engaging. And some students will do homework, and honestly, that's necessary. And you gotta let them students do that, So sometimes you gotta pick the times that you will engage these students and see when it's appropriate to not appropriate, or at least go up and talk to them. Sometimes I'll just talk to them, ask them how it's going. So advice for mentors, again, this is all in that guide, and I encourage you to look through it more thoroughly than I'm kind of breezing through some of these points. But mentoring a team is one of the most rewarding experiences in personal life. For me, it's huge. I get to see the fruits of it with some of the students coming here working at Delta. And sometimes you see immediate ones at some of the schools I go into, and they're hungry for some more. Or just for myself, is this continuing learning how I can mentor better, right? How can I approach the student, or can I approach the student a little differently? And how do I go about my mentoring and how I want to interact with everybody? The first goal in robotics is to help students to have fun. And if you're not having fun in your class, we brought it up earlier, and some clubs, play music and stuff. And I always, you guys make fun of my 80s, but when I hear students playing 80s music, I always say, name the artist, right? I try and engage and say, well, who sings that? Some don't have a clue who that 80s ran by guys were, or whatever, And so it's fun. It's just interaction. And they're like, ooh, this guy, let's talk music. And, it's like, well, what's your favorite music? And it's little things that you tune in and can engage the students. So more stuff again on, the dots, topics like diversity and stuff that you'll be talking about more later and stuff in the school and partnerships with everything. Again, this is the partnership with the students, and if you go in there with a good attitude and servant, but I think it makes life a lot easier. The one thing I did want to kind of talk a little bit, it used to drive me crazy a little bit, is the transition from a student to a mentor. Now, these two young guys were here are transitioning to be a mentor, and we want them. We want them to come in here. It used to always drive me nuts because even as my kids are growing up, your kids get a certain age and they want to be in that adult conversation, and it used to drive me nuts. Like, go away, go plot, go talk to your own group of friends, whatever. I don't want you part of this adult conversation. It's not anything normal. It's just we're having an adult conversation. And now we got these students coming in, and sometimes it drives you nuts because, hey, they're close to age. Sometimes I got buddies that are still there. Is the effective mentoring going to happen, or are they just there to come out and hang out with their friends? So I was going to throw this question out there: Does any of your teams have any specific onboarding type mentoring thing, or things you try to work on when you bring alumni back into as mentors? It's a broad picture because it's one of the things I've struggled in the past with, and I'm getting better at doing that. And it's really helped me here at Delta when I interact with these students when they come to work. Did anyone thought about that, transitioning your alumni into your current robotic team?
I encourage them to go to other teams.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
Good luck.
It can be a big mindset change to be, hey, now you're hands off, you're not doing it yourself. And we've had mentors that come back and try and dictate what the current students are doing. And so you have to really work with them to make sure that's not happening. Which going to another team might really help with.
What we found, we actually went through 2 that came back too soon. And so now we have rules on our team where they don't come back for a number of years. Because yeah, if they're too close, it is really hard for them not to treat them differently
Yeah.
and
we
not
don't
to
have any
understand their role.
hard and fast rules, but we have had some, you have to balance.
Yeah.
We've had some where it's like, okay, maybe you step away for a
Yeah.
We had a student come from another team as a, first year graduate, who was very effective on the team. So I think it can work to have, students who transition from student to mentor in 1 year. But I think it's important for that to be a different team. And I think it depends on the student and their maturity and readiness to be a mentor rather than just an older student on the team.
I think different teams are so different. When we have mentors that have, new mentors, I'm always like, check out other teams, because our team may not be what you want, but there are other groups around that may have a better fit and feel, check out who you're mentoring with. And I mean, we were talking earlier about your mentors they have to like it too. They have to have fun or they're not going to stay.
Right.
So.
They gotta feel a purpose, a sense of being, wanted or needed. And it goes back to why you're there, and do I fit in here, right? Because you're right, not everyone will fit into whatever your team already has going in. Because some of the toxic things is a mentor comes in and says, well, you shouldn't do it that way, you should do it this way, and why you do it this way, question everything that you already have in place, right? You don't want that toxic in your culture and in your team. Because then it divides people. It gets arguing. No one wants to hear mentors argue for students. Strongly take it offline.
Do other people have mentors where you have to mentor your mentors?
Yes.
And figure out how to, I have a couple of mentors that all want to direct, like the programming group and I'm like, okay, that gets hard with the students to figure out who they need to listen to and how this works. And anybody have good solutions on how to?
Us programmers are kind of introverts, so sometimes our way is.
And they have their way of doing things.
Right.
Getting those mentors to realize that there's more than one way. I'm very strong in my opinion too at times.
I can give you an industry. I mean, I'm looking at Todd and this group of PEs. I mean, in custom machine building where we're trying to not have one-offs in the industry that we have to come back and fix. They have team meetings and they talk about what they're going to standardize for software. And it might just be pulling those mentors together in a team meeting and saying, guys, you all have to be put in the same direction. And what is it? And I don't know. I find that you guys throughout the years have done a good job now opening up the communication and talking before you just program something one-off.
Right.
They'll know better, but
Can't support it later.
correct, you can't support it later.
Corey knows that word. No, it's all good discussion about that, and students coming in or new mentors as well on there and how they fit in. And I think that discussion needs to happen on there, and as mentors have been there a while, need to recognize, or the head coach and that needs to recognize before it gets toxic, before it starts dividing it and making other mentors upset and want to leave the team. Some teams are just happy they have somebody to come and help them, and I'm not going really into that and I don't have an answer, but how do you get new mentors to come in? right? Where do you find your mentors? You know, and Wendy kind of mentioned it before, and look at your sponsors. You know, if you have some industry sponsors in that, approach them, talk to them on there. Again, not everyone can be a mentor. We have mentors here at Delta don't do as well a job mentoring than others as well. They don't have passion for it. Some don't want to be a mentor, right? Even though they are a mentor. This is kind of like the argument is everyone's customer service, right? Here at Delta too, we're all customer service. We have internal customers, external customers, everyone we deal with, it's all customer service, right? How we deal with our coworkers and reaction, right? And especially needs to be done in our teams as well with our mentors, right? How are we going to do that? What's our goals today? Same type of things we did with just building that culture in your team and evaluating it. What this looks like. What do we want it to be? What do we want these students to look at when they get out of here? Again, it starts with the mentors in everything. The inclusion, the diversity, the technical stuff, the marketing stuff and all that. It all comes from the mentors and what drives it, because there's certain teams that have a mentor that's really strong in this, and that's what they're good at. They don't do anything of the other stuff. It's all important in the day, but there's only so much resources too. But partnering with industry is a huge thing. I think my big passion is bringing kids out of the classroom in the industry and showing them that what you're doing in FIRST Robotics is important. And if this is your passion and this gets you going every day, that you can't wait for that end of the day bell and you want to go to robotics, hallelujah, I love it. Come learn STEMs, learn marketing, come go out and do speeches and do these chairman's things and go in front of sponsors and get in front of them. You know, and Josh has helped me with the jumpstart things and one jumpstart. I'm sorry, I'm gonna pick on you, Josh, but that's not Josh's thing. And one of the presentations, he wasn't feeling very good. And I just had to say, okay, take a step outside around the building, but I was happy he agreed to do it. And I was pushing him. I admit, I was pushing him to do something, but it's getting him out of his shell, and that little interaction helps him when he's dealing with his coworkers eventually, right? Always talking with his coworkers, how you go talk to people and stuff like that. And so everything we do, I like to do is for a purpose when I do things. It's a little bit of a hidden agenda, but I think in the long run, it helps them out. As long as we don't push the students too far. And that's where we really got to be careful. And we have to make sure the rest of the mentors are on board with what we're doing within their teams as well. So again, here's just a list of different things of avoid rehashing things, encouraging laughter. I mean, you have to have fun. I love having fun. I love having fun here at Delta's too. If you don't enjoy one another when you're around each other, you're not passionate about being there and why you're there, maybe that's not for you. Maybe you got to think about not mentoring or volunteering certain things. So time's going by quickly here during this session, but again, we have some questions in here on here. And what's the difference between mentor code? We kind of talked about it. I don't really want to beat that up. It's just something to be aware of, because you'll have them coaches that have different philosophies on how to run the team. And as a mentor, that's frustrating out of the industry to come in and help teams when the coach is not on the same page. And that's where you might have to separate yourself. But both have similar jobs. But again, the partnership between students and mentors, coaches that are coming in and interact with these teams is huge. You have to think of it as a partnership that we're in this together, team. We're going to make this 6-week build time. We're going to be ready for that regional. Or, hey, we're going to go to the off-season event coming up here in a couple of weeks at Roseville or down in Savage. Is our robot ready? Let's talk about this. Be passionate. I love being passionate in front of students and teachable moments all the time. So take a moment, and write down some things why you're doing this. Why is it important to have mentor and coaches' responsibilities? We kind of talk about it, but it's not really a list. Here's what the coach's responsibility, here's what the mentor is. And then they all have to be in the same alignment. And what's one thing that you can improve on your mentorship, mentoring/coaching? Let's take a note that for a minute, and then you could discuss a little bit.
80s music.
Rock, Here, man. Does anyone have any questions, comments, generalizations about mentoring? I don't have all the answers.
One of
I
the
continue to grow.
I found is kind of talked about like what we're offering the students, but the 6 years, now 7 years that I've been part of this, is how much I've grown. You know, how much I've learned from the kids. And just the way to turn around and look at it from a different angle. You know, had so much tunnel vision before, and it's like, oh, okay, they teach me how to look at things differently too. And I kind of even approach software when I'm working with somebody. I kind of, I don't know it all, but I'm here to talk to you through it, and we'll have a discussion through kind of, it's called rubber ducking in a couple books that I've read before. Like, tell me about your problem, and probably halfway through you're gonna learn. I'm gonna learn something from you, and you're gonna figure out your own problem. Just saying it out loud. So really, just the mentoring is all reciprocal. It is. I've grown a lot from these kids too.
I've definitely learned a lot. It's helped me in my job here at Delta to say that. I know I went through some things quite fast in there, and again, it's on the first website and mentor. I think it's mentorship. I can put the link up if you didn't have it, but a lot of good stuff in there. Kind of really dives in there and kind of walks you through things. It's an online module you can go through, and I really encourage you to go through it. You know, seeking out and it really takes the point of view if you got a new mentor coming in as well. And Laura's got the mentor onboarding, but what I'm taking this perspective is when you got the mentors and then how you plug them in and how you show them different things and really integrate them into. Well, we're going to take a break, and then Alex is going to talk where we're going. We want to keep going, or we need 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. I gotta make sure I get all my